Welcome to Women in the Middle Entrepreneurs, the podcast that gives you an unfiltered, behind-the-scenes look at what it's really like being a woman in the middle who's over 50 and following her entrepreneurial dreams. Grab a superhero cape, girlfriend, because you deserve one. I'm your host, Master Certified Life Coach and Midlife Mentor, Susie Rosenstein, and I am excited to inspire you with interviews that feature all of this midlife amazingness. Let's go. Hey there, welcome back to the show. We have a really exciting interview ahead of us again today about going from a side business while working full-time to becoming a full-time solopreneur. Today, you'll be meeting Nanette Thelemaque, a woman in the middle entrepreneur who started as a virtual assistant and morphed her business into digital and strategic marketing. Welcome to the show, Nanette. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Sue. And it's nice being here.
It's so nice being here with you, somebody from New Hampshire. I love that. It's a great part of the world. So I know we're going to have a great conversation about your midlife entrepreneur story. We'll be talking about your business and what's going really well, and also what midlife issues or hiccups or challenges or whatever might be getting in the way to some extent and might be, being a little challenging for you in your life, as well as being a business owner. That's how we roll in midlife as entrepreneurs. So let's get started with this question. How old are you? How long have you been an entrepreneur? Anything about your entrepreneurial journey? And of course, a little detail about what you do in the world. Take it away.
I'm 60. I have to think about this. I'm 67 and I've been an entrepreneur since 2013, probably earlier, 2004, because I would go in and out when I was working full time, started a website, did a little networking, but didn't really jump in until 2013.
Nice.
And then I think I was actively promoting myself as I worked full time until 2017, where I went because of certain circumstances pushed me to go full time.
And what was that?
I like to call it, there were two things. One was facing ageism in the workplace, which was terrible. And it really put a lot of pressure on me because my intention was to continue working on the side until I reached real full-time retirement and then would do the full-time as a retirement job. But the circumstances didn't happen that way. And the ageism pushed me out of where I was working. And I took another job thinking that, this will be fine. But then the supervisor that I met found out that I had a side business. Now, I should note that a lot of people in the company that I was working for had side businesses, my boss included. The supervisor didn't like me doing it. And she basically gave me an ultimatum to resign and I can get rehired in another department, but she didn't want me working with a side business with her. And then at that, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm so glad that you wanted to be on the show because it's very common for people to start a business as a side gig and, and then have that decision looming about, is this viable? When do I go? Do I go? Do I not go? And it's also very common to face ageism in the workplace. So both of your experiences are common and often bumpy. Like I've heard that before too. There's a variety of reasons that people don't like you having a side gig, and some of them have absolutely nothing to do with your performance.
Right.
Yeah. But so you were navigating a lot of stuff. So I guess all of those things kind of forced your hand to leave a little earlier than you'd planned.
Exactly. And it was fortuitous in a way because it was scary. Because of the fact that I knew I didn't feel ready. I felt that I had to. But it was just at that time where my family learned that my mother was dying of a liver disease. Not from alcoholism, but it was misdiagnosed from it. And to the point where by the time she hit 80, there wasn't anything anyone could do.
Oh,
and
sorry.
So, yeah, it was sad. But by being an entrepreneur and running my own business, I was able to go to California and help my brother who was moving them down to a condo that he bought for them to make their life easier. But both him and his wife were full-time, working full-time, and they needed somebody to help. And so I could run my business, didn't matter where I was, and I could help my family, my parents, and my mother. So
that's such a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turned out okay.
Yeah. You know what? That's funny about life is a lot of times things happen for you, even though they're not pretty or comfortable. Sometimes things really do work out. You're able to make the best of it. And who knew how portable online businesses were going to become? You know,
Exactly.
boy, has it
Exactly.
changed in
It
the
has.
last 5-10 years, really 5 years. With COVID, so many people were just like really challenged to think,
It's
can my
funny.
business be flexible?
Yes. And it opened the doors because I think when I started, you're constantly explaining what a virtual was, that, oh yeah, I could work from home. It didn't matter where I was. And that was half the explanation to all my prospects. The moment COVID hit, it's understood. Everyone knew, oh yeah, I can work from home. It's just, and it was easy for me to continue doing what I was doing, and I didn't need to get into the educational part of that anymore. People understood, and it was easy for me to do it. A lot of people were struggling. How do I do this? How do I
Yes.
focus? Yeah.
Yeah, I remember having a conversation with somebody because I'd been on Zoom for a few years already. And I'm like, yeah, microphone's important. Here are some options, like really basics. Lighting is
Yeah.
important. Here are some basics. Yeah. And let alone them figuring out themselves what they could they transfer or morph their business into online when it had never been online before. Anything like it. It's
Exactly.
so interesting. And I'm
Exactly.
sure that probably generated a lot of work for you.
It did. I was very busy. A lot of times people say, "Well, how's it working for you?" I'm like, it hasn't stopped. In fact, it's climbed. So,
Yeah. How did you first get the idea to do what you're doing?
it was the funniest thing, but I come from sales and marketing background and I had to travel a lot, and it was always technology, about the internet and whatever. So in 2000, I don't know if you remember, but the bubble burst for technology. A lot of companies were laying off people, and I was one. And I was looking for work and perusing Google, and I just remember, and I don't know how it came up, but virtual assistant came up, and I was looking at it going, wow, you could work from home. And that was back in, 2000. And so I started investigating it and thinking, if it becomes hard to find work, this is, maybe I should consider something like this. So it was in the back of my mind, but I did get a job in a marketing department of a publishing company. And I did that for a long time before moving up to New Hampshire. But it was always rummaging in my head, like I would love to have that flexibility and be able to do work. Plus, I could do things that I enjoy doing, because the work I was doing, it's just one part of what I knew I could do. And this way I could be my own boss, which was so, exciting. And so I think it was in 2004 that I built a website and started, putting my foot in the waters and seeing what happens. And I talked about it with people that I knew. And my very first customer was a coworker whose mother owned a store, a brick and mortar store, but also sold online and wanted help. And that was my first customer, and went on from there.
Oh, that's so great. I'm just remembering something that I haven't thought about this in a while, but I also worked in a publishing department at a hospital for 19 years, and I got laid off in 2013. One of my favorite projects there was a series of children's books, and I got a chance to work with a real illustrator and whatnot. And I remember him telling me he lived far away in Canada someplace. And I remember him telling me that his career was really changing because now you didn't need to be local to be an artist anymore. You could be anywhere and send files digitally. So that was the first time I kind of heard from anybody who said technology is changing my business. I was very unaware. I didn't know anything about IT other than just, Word Perfect or whatever we were using back then.
Wow.
But it was just that conversation that he was saying that, yeah, it doesn't matter where you are anymore. You don't need to be a local artist, even though you're doing all these paintings from hand to illustrate a children's book. It was fascinating. So yeah, you've really seen a lot change. And then as your VA business grew, I'm sure you started to really see what you liked. What did you start to notice as more and more people were starting their own businesses?
In the beginning, I thought the virtual assistant, the administrative was what most people would want. And it's easier to understand, But what I found was that they would say they want you for administrative help, but then want you to do social media or wanted you to help them with some aspect of marketing. And I realized that, well, that's not administrative work. That's different. And that was what they had the most problems with. They didn't want the help with they could have used the help with administrative assistant, but they rather have somebody that was in near them. So if they had a business with an office, they rather somebody be there for the administrative tasks. But it was the social media that was up and coming. It was their websites. Those are the things that they were asking for. And so me loving technology, I was like, that's great. I'm happy to do that for you. And so that began my road towards being a digital marketer more than anything. And then I started getting more clients because that's what they needed. Yeah. They didn't understand it. They didn't know, how to even get started. And even if they did understand it, they just didn't have time because they were working in their business. It's time consuming to do social media and work on your website and the SEO and all that, that it's time consuming and it changes constantly.
That's
and you have
the
to
thing, Nanette. That's it. It changes constantly. So once you get comfy with one new application of whatever the app is, or one new, I don't know, I don't even know what the word is, but like they offer something new and then it's just too overwhelming. It's like, I don't want to learn anything new. I just learned so many new things. I don't want one more new thing. I don't care if I'm not cutting edge. I know I'm always curious about people who actually like it. It's like It's bookkeeping. That's something I can't stand.
But I can't stand that.
I'm so loving my bookkeeper. And it's like, I just find it fascinating that you love this. She does.
I know. I have my daughter-in-law loves it, and she's not a bookkeeper, but she should be. I think she'd be fabulous at it. But she loves it. That was one of my first jobs when I was very young, and I got fired because I was terrible. But they kept me on. They kept me on to do something else because they said they liked me, but they said don't touch the books.
So that's interesting. So you just got busier and busier, and that's basically what happened.
Exactly. And then you start, and it's a constant learning process. You have to spend some time or manage your time to learn what's new, what's changing, what's the trends. You have to do that for your clients and you have to do that for your own business. So that's part of the job. And then, what I found is once I got comfortable providing these tactics, if you will, or these services, what I was finding is that people didn't have a clear understanding of the importance of strategy before you implement anything. They just
you mean
I want to be on social media.
You just plan something? You're supposed to plan something?
Right.
I know, because we always feel so behind. Just fix the problem, please.
Exactly. I just want to be on the internet. That's it. But what are you saying? And who are you saying it to? And how many times are you going to say it? What's the topics? Those are the things that nobody wants to talk about. But and I didn't want to be put in a position where I'm doing what you asked, but it's not going anywhere because there's no plan. What does that look like for me? And am I doing you a service or myself? So strategy has to come first, and now that's what's changing my model of my business, that strategy is always important, that we have to talk about that. And you may have great ideas because everybody's always chasing the next shining object, right? Sure, it's like, oh, this is that, but you really have to think what's important for you, who your ideal customers are. What is it you want to get across to them? What is your value proposition, and then you set up, what it is you want to say and how you're going to say it and who you're going to say it to. And then you implement. And so that's something that's I'm really passionate about and want to help people understand.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Okay. Now midlife gets in the way sometimes, my friend. It got in the way with your long-term employment and with the aging and whatever. And it comes in other ways. So I love talking to people about this because I find that this is something that we're really not talking enough about.
No.
But midlife women have a lot on their plates. So tell me a little bit about how some of these midlife things are getting in the way of you running and or growing your business the way you'd really like to?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, if you think leaving your job settles the perception of aging, it does not, so you're constantly having to deal with that. It amazes me that people think that when you hit a certain age, all of a sudden you're stupid. You don't know anything anymore, and that surprises me, but it's something that I have to face and deal with. And, I think that a lot of people half my age are savvy in terms of technology and understand it, but that doesn't mean they know everything, and they still make the same mistakes that I mentioned before, where you don't plan or strategize well. You just want something, and you're all over the map.
It's funny that you're saying this, because I just assumed, because I talk to a lot of midlife women, and a lot of us complain about technology, because that is one area where some of us feel ignorant. It was certainly a huge problem for me. I needed to really challenge myself with my mindset and work on it. And now it's gotten a lot better. Like when I have a problem, like when I go to record a podcast, if the settings have changed without my doing it, I used to just start to sweat and really get nervous. Like, oh my God, I have a deadline. I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know how to fix this setting. And now I just calmly take a few steps, including Google, and I've been able to figure it all out. Like I really have, and I don't sweat anymore and shake out of nervousness. But I thought because you're working in technology and you have so much experience, that wouldn't be something that would get in your way with people making assumptions like that. Because look where your experience base is.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. It's people think you don't that you don't get it, or well, she's of that age and stuff like that. I hate that. It's like, what are you talking about? I have a 95-year-old father who's on the internet all the time, and he knows, he's fine. He figures things out himself, and he's 95. It's age is nothing. That's just, so I don't like when people have these preconceived notions, and that's something that I'm really passionate of breaking. It's like, but also I think what's also gets in the way of trying to be successful is trying to navigate your time. I have grandchildren. I want to see them, but I also need to, sometimes I forget important dates. I have a husband who would rather, he also is working. He's 6 years younger than me, so he's not at retirement age, but he wants to slow down. He wants to do more fun stuff and he's like, why are you doing this to yourself? And I'm like, because I enjoy it. Because I want to. So it's managing my time with my family and, and their expectations and what I want to do to make myself happy.
How are you managing it? Like, what are you doing?
I try. Now I actually decide I would say in 2020, just before COVID hit, I started actually outsourcing for my clients. So I'm more of managing people than doing it myself. So I have time. So if my husband wants to go for a hike, we can go for a hike. I still have to plan it. He can't just come in the room and say, hey, let's go hiking right now, which he does a lot. But, I said, you tell me when you want to, what days, you're thinking, because he wants it when it's beautiful weather. So he can, you monitor the weather, you let me know, and then I can plan my day accordingly, offload it to someone else to do, or know that I'm not going to be available at a certain time. So it's really learning how to manage your time. And that's really important too. And that's another thing that I like to help people understand, because a lot of my clients, they're really busy. And sometimes I'm chasing my clients' people, the people they need to get in touch with. And it amazes me how many people are so busy that they're not managing their time properly. Because you can't tell me that you're so busy you can't answer one email. That's ridiculous. It's like, then something is wrong. And it doesn't mean that you're very successful. It just means you're working yourself to death and you're not managing your time well.
Yeah, it's so funny, because one time I published a podcast episode about this. One time my kid, it was probably 20 years ago, I felt so busy that I couldn't cut my kid a mango. I had a kid noticing that the mango was ripe in the fruit bowl. And he's like, Mommy, he was a little boy, like 6 or 7. Mommy, can I have a mango, please? I'm sorry, honey, I'm too busy. I actually said that more than once. And I remember feeling too busy because mangoes are complicated. They're messy. It takes a few, not just one cut. And I felt that busy. And I've used that as a reference point and as a teachable moment so often because the way we think about our lives and our time is there's so much wiggle room there. And then the way we plan or don't plan is also something we can get better at. I was just thinking your husband better be careful or he's going to you might outsource I can't even speak. Your husband better be careful or you might outsource his hiking partner. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I love what you just said about managing your time and your expectations and planning more. And it all comes down to, I think, a new midlife operating system that has a lot to do with planning in advance and committing to your plans. And that as a way to take care of yourself, you also take care of the business. But the grandchildren thing is a thing. I don't have any grandchildren yet, but I speak to so many women who are talking about this. Tell me what that's like to have these kids that you love in your life, these grandchildren, and also love your business.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
It's again, managing my time. It's managing my time. And I have it's not only my grandchildren, I have nieces, that like to contact me. I have one niece who texts me out of the blue many times. And, because she just wants to connect. And I don't let those opportunities because I'm busy stop me. Right. I'm going to be there for them. So if my granddaughter texts me or sends me an email, I'm responding right away. If she wants to do a Zoom because I can't get down to see her, then we're Zooming. And I make a priority. So it's prioritizing what's really important to you.
Yeah.
I never want my business to get in the way of quality time with my family.
That's an important value to keep front and center. Yeah.
Right.
So with the ageism thing that you were talking about, I know that it was surprising and painful. I'm assuming it was painful.
It was.
Yeah. When I worked in a job, I remember having an older friend who was thinking about retirement and she wouldn't discuss it with anybody because of her fear of aging, because she wasn't ready yet, but she was just starting to think about it and she didn't know what was going to happen just as a result of her talking about it. So when you are experiencing it and you're as confident as you are, but you're picking up on it, how did you behave? Like, did you end up taking it on? Did you have discussion? Did you point it out or did you just?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you did.
I did. I mean, I did because what happened was I was expecting to become an office manager of where I was working because the job you take whatever job you can find. And in New Hampshire, it's very rural. And even though I had sales and marketing, I didn't want to travel anymore. I didn't want that life anymore. So I worked in an office of higher education. You would think they would know better in the higher education, but
you'd think everybody would know better.
I know. And the department was great. I loved it. But then there were, transitions and new people coming in to take over. I was constantly asked to train new people. And what was hurtful was when the time came for somebody to take a management role of the office, instead of me, they gave it to someone that I trained, and and I didn't care because I liked that person. I was disappointed, but I was all right with it until she changed and started seeing everything I did was wrong. And then I started picking up, the signals that there was joking, comments about my age and things of that nature. And I did address it directly. And when I didn't get results, I went up the ladder like you're supposed to. I went to everyone. I went to, they have what they call omnibus. I forget, but it's an advocate. And there was somebody
yeah. Ombudsman.
That's
thank
you.
See, it takes a village.
Right. You don't want to always feel like if you forget something, people are going to treat you that she's getting senile or something like that, But, and we talked about it, and I talked about it with human resource. And then finally, I just realized they're too slow to react to this. I can see, what's going on and where it's leading. And before that was going to happen, I was going to go out on my terms. And so I just took an early retirement. I said, you know what? I'm because I was there long enough, I could retire. Yeah. I said, I'm retiring. And,
beautiful
I was going to move on.
Beautiful that you had options and you had so much experience. I know it's just so hard to believe that that's actually happening. But after I interviewed on my other podcast, Women in the Middle, I interviewed somebody who'd written a book about ageism.
Really?
And I started to reflect on, some of the things I did when I had a job. And I used to always talk about my seniority as a good thing. And I can see that that wasn't wise at all, because it is basically saying that you're old and you've been here a long time, perhaps too long. And yeah, so it's like when you're in it, you can only do so much, but you have to look after yourself, and you did, which was amazing. Now, the other question I have for you is about, you talked about hiring other people, and now the plan is to manage more people. What is that transition like for you, to go from being more of a solopreneur mindset to actually starting to hire people, manage people, have to do performance appraisals, contract work, like all those details associated and interpersonal stuff? What's that like for you?
I like it, actually. It's not, it's enjoyable. It's not as hard as you think. And I think it's making sure your mindset's in the right place. And also, what's important to me is to be self-reflective. I thought back on when I had a job. I thought back on the good bosses I had and the bad bosses I had, and what kind of relationship I want to establish with these individuals, who are competent and smart, and some have, insecurities. And I wanted to be more of a coach and a mentor to them than anything. And understand that life gets in the way no matter what. And it doesn't matter. Don't, sweat it. It's okay. We're all in this together. And that's how I try to manage them.
I like that. So the other thing I just wanted to touch on again, because there's a lot going on when it comes to not everybody being at the same energetic level with retirement and gearing down. Entrepreneurs are on fire and so excited about everything. We can't help ourselves. We've got squirrels. We have shiny objects. We have amazing ideas. So I've heard you talked about your spouse getting ready to gear down a little as you're gearing up. Have you also experienced it with your friends?
My friends, yeah. My friends are far and few between. They're younger than me, because when I think back, I kept my friends from other past jobs, and a lot of them are younger. They're starting to become empty nesters, and and I had one that started a brick and mortar store. She's running on pistons too. I mean, she's happy to be doing that. So they all understand. They think it's great. They're just very supportive, all of them. My sister included, who wants to retire. She's also in the same frame. She's my twin. She's the same mindset as my husband, I just want to travel. I just want to relax. And I said, well, my goal is to get this to a point where it's fully functional, and it doesn't require much from me except to market, so I can join you when you want to travel and go hiking with my husband. That's the goal. But right now I have to do the work.
Right. That's great. Okay. So the other thing that you said in terms of one of the questions I asked on the application was some of the surprises. And you said one of the positive surprises is the self-awareness of who you are. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I'm always saying we're not just older, we're older and wiser.
Yeah, it's been wonderful, because if I see the timeline of me, the younger me and the older me, it's always been a lot of risks that I've had to take.
Really?
Just the nature of my life, I guess. And I've always been a little, insecure. But one thing I noticed is that since I took this on and jumped into it, it opened a lot my eyes on my ability to persevere, my strengths. You don't really pay attention to your strengths.
You take it for granted, right?
Exactly. But you pay attention to when you're falling apart. That's the easiest thing to look at and beat yourself up on whatever. And what I found was that I was able to put that to bed. That doesn't mean that now and then I have those moments of, oh no, what am I going to do? But then I take a deep breath, and I'm aware that, Nanette, all you have to do is look at everything you've accomplished, and it's okay. And so that self-awareness has become really eye-opening for me, and I enjoy that. It's a nice feeling. It's okay. That. Yeah.
I love that because really we have a lot of experience and you haven't gotten where you are right now by accident. That's for sure.
Right.
Well, I think your story's terrific. How can people
Thank
best
you.
get in touch with you?
My email is the best way. Nanette at inessenceinc.com. So that's the name of my company's In Essence. And it's going to be In Essence Business Solutions. So I'll be putting to bed my In Essence virtual assistants that I currently use and have been used for years, but it's going to be called Business Solutions instead. But
okay, so that's www.inessencebusinesssolutions.com and then Nanette at inessencebusinesssolutions.com.
Okay.
It's
very short. Yeah.
inessenceinc.com. Got it. Okay. Yeah. It's going to be in the show notes as well.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. All right. So Nanette, this is very cool that you've taken lots of risks and you had a couple of bumps, and that's just life in the big city when it comes to being an entrepreneur, especially over 50.
That's right.
So thank you so much for taking the time from your day and sharing all of this good stuff. I really appreciate your honesty about the struggle with ageism and also, the tension that exists with loving your grandchildren and family and also having a priority to create a business that is sustaining so that you can have travel and have a business and have the time you want to do all the things. It's really good. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right. That is it for now. If you're listening and loving what you hear, please like and subscribe. Reviews are great too and much appreciated. And if you're a woman in the middle who's 50 or over and an entrepreneur and would like to also come on the show, please go to www.midlifeinterviews.com and fill out an application. We would love to have you on to share your story. Thanks so much for listening. It is never too late for you to put yourself on your agenda. I'm Susie Rosenstein, and I'll talk to you again soon. Now, real quick before we say goodbye, if you are connecting with the show, I'd love to invite you to a happiness breakthrough coaching session. It's my laser-focused coaching call that will help you get clear about what's getting in your way as a woman in the middle entrepreneur and confident about your next steps to more happiness in your next chapter. Head over to www.nextchapterbreakthrough.com. Talk to you soon.